All right, so here we go. Kicking off the interview I've been working on for a little while. Took some time to edit, and with the work schedule, I was out of town just last week. Didn't get a lot of time to work on this, but got an interview coming with a former MPP volunteer here. Joe might be mispronouncing her last name. I don't remember how she pronounced it, but I think it's Sherry. She came on. She talked about her experiences with the MPP. Now I've got to forewarn everyone here, okay? It's not going to be the best quality on my end. Unfortunately, I had a bad connection. Joe came through very well, but I had to splice with the screenshots and stuff she provided me, like I said I would in the video that you're going to see. It's taking me some time to put all that together, but let's get straight into it. Links to her social media, her Twitter, is going to be in the description below. I'm also going to have the in the name title. You can see Joe's name. You can see what her social media is, her Twitter handle, and all that. So let's just get to it. Good interview here, and I think this is very revealing about what's going on behind the scenes here in the MPP. Let's get to it. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Lone Wolf Podcast. I got a special guest today. We're doing something a little different. I've got an interview on. Got Joe here, former volunteer. You volunteer with the MPP?
Yes, I was a volunteer for MPP from roughly September-ish to February 7th.
So, Joe, go ahead and tell us. You were with the MPP. What sort of things did you personally notice inside this party that made you uncomfortable or made you feel that you needed to leave?
Well, it all started when they had their convention. I thought, well, I'm going to give them a second look because it actually looks like they're getting some momentum now. When I initially decided to look into them, I didn't see that they were really doing a whole lot yet. And so I kind of just reserved judgment. And so I decided to go ahead and make the leap and start volunteering for them. Everything was all fine and hunky-dory until I started asking for accommodations for people with disabilities. I asked for ASL, which is American Sign Language translators, and I asked for closed captioning for people who are hard of hearing and deaf for their national broadcasts. I was told that they couldn't afford it. Well, I spent on a 5-hour call, roughly the tail end of January, with Phil Atetto, who is a regional coordinator. I told him, I said, you guys cannot outsource this to a college university who has an assistive services department. And I pretty much got a very oh, no, I didn't think of that look. But if they'd been listening to me from the start, when I kept telling them this, then they should have been implementing this. I signed a petition with the other leadership out of solidarity for all of the other leaders within MPP that were having the same problems I was starting to have, or I'd already experienced the same problems I was having. And, at first it was all rah, 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 Joe, you're doing a great job. I grew my circle to 41 members. I was the leader of the political outreach, people with disabilities outreach circle. So I had grown that up to 41 members. And I even had a call with Tiffany Anning, who is the political outreach co-coordinator with Nick Brana. And she was all, man, we think you're doing a fabulous job and you are really growing your circle and we're really impressed with how you're organizing so quickly and this, that, and everything else. And so I was like, okay, yeah, all right, thank you for all the kudos. And I just went right back to doing my work, And the one thing that started to be a red flag for me was when we were in a political outreach working group meeting and we were told not to focus on policy, but to focus on outreach only. How can I, as somebody who is representing people with disabilities, not focus on policy and only focus on outreach when the two, for our demographic in the United States of America, very much get neglected? So I started to push back. I said, no, we still need to focus on policy when we're doing outreach. And I just totally dismissed that line of bullshit because there was no way I was going to do that. I was not going to leave people with disabilities in the dust when it came to advocating for them uh, and what we were supposed to be doing. So, and then I asked to be part of the national calls. That never happened, at least not for our circle. It never happened. And, it just, one thing after another. I got into a fight, I guess if you want to call it a fight, with Thomas Royko on Twitter. Thomas Royko is their IT guy. And, I kept pushing back and saying, I have been trying to get you guys to make things more ADA compliant. And, well, because I got into an argument with Thomas, they decided to kind of use that loosely as an excuse to get rid of me. I was axed from the organization on February 7th at 11:50 p.m. on a Sunday. And my access to the state Slack, my access to the National Volunteer Slack, my access to Basecamp, my access to Action Network was all revoked within a matter of minutes. My, or I should say, People's Party, Nick Brana, Carol Earl, Thomas Royko, and Annalise Garcia all have me blocked on Twitter. And Tiffany Anning has her tweets protected now. And, I also found out on the Vanguard podcast, broadcast with Annalise Garcia, that Annalise Garcia showed the screenshot of me and Harley Morrissey having a conversation in a Discord server to Susan Sarandon that was taken totally out of context. We were having a conversation about the advisory board members that we were trying to talk to and let them know what was going on with MPP so that they could say, hey, Nick, you need to get your head out of your ass and you need to start paying attention to your volunteers or you're going to lose them. That was our whole intent. And I made the comment that, Ryan stepping down is a huge thing for us because now finally somebody on the advisory board has taken us seriously. And then Harley comes up and says, next we need to target Susan Sarandon and Cornell West. And by targeting, which was taken clear out of context, by targeting, we meant we needed to contact them next, not do anything malicious or malevolent towards them. And I come back and say, yes, those two will be huge. We have screenshots for all of this, and I'm willing to provide this to your audience via Twitter or however you would like me to present this information to you. And so they're using that as actually the mechanism for which they decided to axe me. And Marvin Street Jr. Took over for Jerry Perez as regional coordinator for the West Coast. He admitted to the Black Voters Circle that he helped get me removed from MPP. And he makes a comment that it feels that it's right to have me removed for my malicious intent. And I did not know that Susan Sarandon had seen the screenshot, but the conversation between me and Harley, until I watched the Annalise Garcia interview with Zach and Gavin over at the podcast, the Vanguard podcast. And I didn't even know that Marvin went behind my back and did this until the Black Voters Group held his feet to the fire and got him to admit it. So it's all a mess, and I feel like, this is really crappy that they want to pick on somebody who seriously has nothing to lose by standing up for myself. I am a single mom to an adult son with special needs. I'm on Section 8 housing. I'm on food assistance. I'm on medical assistance. We lost our case manager in January. She was fired. We've had our home and community-based supports revoked about 2 years ago. We've been fighting to get those back. And I find it laughable that they have the home and community-based supports as one of the platform planks in their disabilities rights pillar on their website. And they had somebody who was going through that exact same struggle. And they could have used my experience as a teaching moment for their movement and say, look, we finally have one who is going through this. Let's help her and people like her so that they can get the relief that they need. And, you know, Nick got on this national call the other night and had his little crocodile tears for Phil in the situation that Phil was going through. And I got on their YouTube broadcast and I put, yeah, Nick, where were your crocodile tears when I told you we lost our case manager and we're back to square zero when getting our home and community-based supports restored? Nothing. And, you know, like I said, I have nothing to lose. You know, I'm already at rock bottom. So I mean, I just think it's really crappy that they're going to pick on somebody that is going through what we're going through. And
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing is, you know, it seems to be that they're not just necessarily focusing, I guess, on what the status of the person is. It seems like the big thing is that anyone who says something or pitches an idea that didn't come from the upper echelon of this movement, that is grounds for you getting kicked. And so in your case, you said you want people talking about policy. Well, I got news for you. I mean, I've told people that, look, if we want unity, we're not going to agree on every policy, but we still need to find a core set of policies that we can unify the core of this country on. We're talking about the working class from East Coast to West Coast here, okay? We make up the majority of the, okay? And there's certain issues that we're going to be able to pitch. And so far, I don't seem to get much pushback on this. There's some who want a complete defund of the police, but perhaps the middle ground we could come is on police reform. Maybe all this qualified immunity should go away. We certainly don't need a militaristic police force, right? So common ground could be found there. Common ground on bringing jobs back. People need to be able to get jobs. And for the people who've been screwed over by an education system or lost their jobs thanks to bad free deals, perhaps more funding into programs so that you can go to a trade or tech school and learn a trade so that you don't have to try to work for these starvation wages. I got news for you. The left, the progressives don't seem to have a problem with that, and I got news for you. You're going to win the South and the Rust Belt on that too, because they were terrorized. You know, I'm not sure where exactly you're at, but if you're anywhere around the southern states, yeah, and I hope you don't take offense to this, but it sounds like you might be. I recognize the accent a little bit. So if you were from this area of the world, Kansas, okay. So I don't know just how much of the textile industry you had in Kansas, but it was huge around South Carolina and the Carolina areas. It was completely gut thanks to these free trade deals. I mean, it killed a lot of the working class people here. So you need to pitch politics. That's a no-brainer. How are you going to get people to come together with this? I mean, kumbaya stuff, that's wonderful, but you've got to tell people this is what we plan. You know, and when I mentioned education system that's flawed, people going into the workforce because it told them to go rack up all this student debt and, you know, go to the 4-year college and then wind up getting a degree in a lot of cases that they couldn't find a job for. So there's a lot of problems here. So education reform needs to be those things. You know, I've always said when I was going through high school, why was it we had to take science classes where you were dissecting frogs and things like that was mandatory, but a class like personal finance was not? You know, we've got a very flawed education. You will get a large chunk of the base of this country to support a lot of those policies. Even when we go into to think healthcare. Now, you're going to get a little bit of vision between the right and the left because they have different ways of approaching it. But these things need to be addressed. We at least need to find a core set that we can agree enough upon, and you got to pitch that to people wrong. If you come together with a party, this is my opinion, if you come together with a party and have no substance, it's just all a bunch of, oh, we want to get a unity party and we'll hope you'll vote for us. Well, what are you running on? Well, just you, man. You know, like that. I'm sorry. There's too many people who want to hear what you plan to do. They want to hear the devils in the deep. So if that's what the MPP is advocating for, then they're absolutely out of their mind. And if anything, it just sounds to me like they're just out here playing, or you know, I mean, I know they're getting a lot of support from people like Jimmy Dore, but that's not a winning strategy, in my opinion.
No, they're just clout chasers right now. That's all they want is clout. And you know, you brought something up with the law enforcement. That was actually one of the main projects that I had my circle working on, was looking at how law enforcement deals with people with disabilities when they're asked to go to the scene of a call. And I was in phase 1 of that project when I got axed. And part of my phase 1 was looking at where all of the law enforcement training centers are located at within each state, what their curriculum looks like in regards to dealing with people with special needs or special populations, how much time is spent in that curriculum, and what their budgets look like. That was the first phase. And I'm actually about halfway through on that. The ADA Council here in Topeka that I'm on has agreed to pick that project up for one of our 2021 goals. So thankfully that project hasn't died. And on the other thing with the workforce thing, we have to address the fact that in 47 states in the union, it is still legal to pay disabled workers a sub-minimum wage. So it doesn't matter all of these conversations that we keep having about $15 an hour minimum wage increase across the country. If we don't address the sub-minimum wage issue for disabled workers, you know, that $15 an hour minimum wage doesn't mean shit to them. If an employer can still legally pay them $7 an hour, $3 an hour, whatever. And here in Kansas, we have a bill called House Bill 2219, where businesses are asking for a tax credit to hire people with disabilities. And they're using it under the guise of, well, it'll incentivize more people with disabilities to go out and look for a job. No, you're using it as a guise to make it look like you're incentivizing people with disabilities to get a job, but you're wanting a tax credit on top of being able to pay them a sub-minimum wage. So you're double dipping and making double profits off the backs of people like my son. And that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And then the other thing.
Not at all. And go ahead.
I have one more point to make. With home and community-based supports, we need universal home and community-based support standards, because there are too many states that have a patchwork, hodgepodge home and community-based supports waiver system. Here in Kansas, the wait list for people with IDD, intellectual developmental disabilities, for home and community-based supports is at least 8 to 10 years long. And there's at least 4,000 Kansans on this wait list. The governor has not recommended that money go to these agencies that provide IDD services, and that they not get the money for the wait list reduction. So, and our governor is a Democratic governor, by the way. And our IDD waiver program and people, Kansans with IDD, are severely neglected in this state. My son is one of them. He has cerebral palsy. So, you know, I mean, I was pushing hard for people with disabilities when I was in MPP, because I saw how both parties were screwing people like my son over. And, you know, I just get so frustrated and fed up with shit sometimes. I just want to scream. It's nuts. I was telling the Falcon General on her broadcast the other night that it really feels like a mind fuck and a clusterfuck, because while you're in there clusterfuck, you're getting mind fucked. And so And it just keeps going and keeps going, you know. And I just trying to roll with the punches, man, as best as I can.
The shit never ends, as they say. But you know, I even put a tweet out. I don't know if you saw it, but you know, and this is more or less focusing on like the two parties here for a moment. But there's so many people out there, whether it be there's shills for the Democrats, whether they be shills for the Republicans, or in some cases here, you've got shills for the like I said, you take Jackson Hinkle, what he did. He literally sat there on a show about electoral politics or activism, and they started diving into the MPP, started mealy mouthing about how he didn't understand how that had something to do with the initial topic.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You know, it took me a minute because I didn't know much about the guy. I didn't know he was only 21. Of course, I can't say much because I'm in my 20s myself, and most people don't really. But at the same time, you know, I thought he was probably around close to 30, maybe. Because when I first Googled his picture, I found pictures where he had already been on TYT, for example. And Franco didn't even know that. Franco didn't know he'd ever been on TYT. He did. I think he was running for like a small political office in a county or something like that.
Yeah.
And they brought him on to talk about it or something. So, yeah, I thought he was a little bit older, but no, you could that the discussion of the MPP and any criticism of the MPP, criticism of Jimmy really bothered him. It's almost like he felt like he was in a bad place and that his future partners or people he had to be his partners might get wind of it and then not want something to do with it. And so it was very Weasley actions in my and to tell you the truth, I've had that feeling about Nick Brana for quite. The more I watch Nick Brana in a video, the more it just screams at me used car salesman.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and if you don't know, for anyone that don't know what I mean by that, the used car salesman will smile at you and hold his hand out there, shake your hand. What you don't see is what's in the other hand. That's where the knife's at. He's just got a very smile about it. And even when I watched their big conference, and we got the wind how they had to basically get their arm twisted just to put someone like Jesse Ventura on because he had some libertarian ties and whatnot, right? That right there told me, I'm like, really? You got a problem bringing Jesse Ventura on like this? You want a third party. Okay, take notes. Here's a guy who ran third party and actually won some. Like there might be some things to be learned here. You know what I mean? So when I heard they were fighting to kind of put him on and really had to get their arm twisted, red light went off right then, right there. And it's been getting worse and worse ever since. And I don't know exactly their end game is, but it certainly isn't winning elections, in my opinion, and it certainly isn't success. I don't know if it's just a gaslight. I don't know if it's to try to I don't know if it even goes as deep as for some reason they want Republicans to win. I don't know. What they're doing makes no sense at all to me. And it certainly isn't unity building or coalition building.
I think to some extent, some of Nick's end game is he's pissed because Bernie didn't decide to hop on board with his movement. And I think that he is saying, please, Bernie, please look at me. I want you to please join our movement, you know, because everything that he talks about is stuff that Bernie's been pushing for years. And I'm sorry, but Bernie's not going to join your movement, dude. You know, Nina Turner's not even joining with the MPP, even after she spoke at their national convention last year. You know, every other organization has endorsed her. JD, BNC, OR, I think Planned Parenthood, I'm not sure about that one. But there are so many other organizations that have endorsed her. But she's not going to run under the MPP banner. And the more stuff that keeps coming out about what they've been doing to volunteers and what they do, period, and their shady tactics, they're not going to get anybody that's going to want to run with them. And, here in Kansas, they've got their work cut out for them because we have a very, very extreme right-wing House and Senate right now. And I don't see him getting a foothold in Kansas. Actually, our revolution has a stronger foothold in Kansas than MPP ever will have. And this is the thing that really boggles my mind is Philatetto was on their national broadcast the other night with an Our Revolution sweatshirt wearing an MPP button. And in their ambassador packet, they advise people to not work with Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, Our Revolution, DSA, or the Green Party. And so the juxtaposition of Phil wearing a MPP button on an Our Revolution sweatshirt just hit me. I'm thinking, oh my God, they are such hypocrites. They're telling their volunteers not to work with Our Revolution. And Phil just admitted that he just came from an Our Revolution meeting with his sweatshirt wearing an MPP button. I'm like, are you guys for real? Is this like this is like kindergarten crap, you know? And then Jamin Mason gets up there and he just about almost spills the beans as to why he took over for the Black voters group. He was starting to talk about some of the dissension within MPP and how he came to be. And then all of a sudden, something snapped in his head and he got back on script. And, they still don't have closed captioning. They still don't have ASL. Somebody actually, and I told him that this would happen. I said, somebody's going to ask you guys for closed captioning in one of your national calls in your comments. Somebody's going to do it. They did. There was a guy that said, can you provide closed captioning, please? And one of their shills said, well, look in the pinned post for the otter.ai transcript. Well, the transcript for otter.ai cannot be completed until after the broadcast, and you have to put it through their software for them to be able to transcribe it. So they're going to be waiting on that transcript. And this was the thing that I was talking to Thomas about in a meeting that I had with him, that this needs to be put on the website. If you're going to use otter.ai and have these transcripts for people that are hearing impaired or visually impaired, because with the transcripts, people that have screen reader software, they can still have access to that broadcast or that transcript too. So he said, well, we'll be putting those on the website. Still no links, no otter.ai transcripts on the website. So it's just a mess. It really is.
Well, it's been sounding more that way since I first heard about it. Me and a few other people used to go on Friday night shows over on a Big Talk, Little Talk. And Richard Idris, I'm not sure if you know who he is. He was a big part of the draft Jesse movement, Jesse Ventura. But he predicted, he said that I got a feeling this thing is going to really start fizzling out from all its hype in no time at all. To an extent, I believe it has. I mean, it's got some backing from some powerful YouTube names at the moment. But when you get down to it, there's a lot of people who are not so high up the celebrity totem who've been dealing with the inner workings like yourself and many others, and they're seeing a really nasty side of the organization. It's not going to be it's not going to be a people's party at all, in my opinion. Maybe a name only, and that's it. You brought up with now isn't it that they have the most clever of arguments to explain her case, which is, well, we just couldn't secure the ballot access there yet. So we're going to have her run as a Democrat. And then maybe when she gets into office, then she can pull the old switcheroo here, and she can become an independent or a People's Party, and then we can get the people. That's just so convenient, just so convenient. You know what I mean? Maybe she will, maybe she won't, but I just don't see them having sweeping success at any point to be a serious enough third party. Because sooner or later, while I don't think the presidency should be the focus now, sooner or later it's going to have to be. And I don't think they're going to sweep the country with the way they're acting if they ever do get any offices elected, that they're going to get enough of a unity coalition together to win the president. There's something that people are going to have to come to grips on. Okay. The South, in a lot of cases, don't want to completely do away with the Electoral College. I'm in favor of ranked choice voting, but I think in a way, that's about the only way the South still keeps any kind of voice in the conversation, because we're too outnumbered when you get to a lot of these bigger states, New York, California, and they've got a whole different way of life. They got a whole different culture, and if you're focused on these places, you'll never care about this place. So that you're gonna have to coalition build, and as long as there is an Electoral College, then you're definitely gonna have to coalition build. You're going to have to be to hearing what we want, and as you just pointed out, in the people got a lot of right-wing people in charge. You've got a Democrat governor, okay, but there's definitely some red in that state. My state is very red.
State, yes.
They can't even unseat Lindsey Graham. Okay, so you're going to have to be open to what we want, what matters to us, what have we seen failure, and you're going to have to do it in a way that you can win the vote. I was going back and forth with someone on my YouTube channel. They were talking about the concept of the Green New Deal, right? And I'll be honest with you. I've got questions here and there, but overall, am I opposed to a cleaner atmosphere? No. But my question was, now, how are you going to sell that on the people, West Virginia, for example, or even a lot of the states like South Carolina, because we don't have a coal mine industry here, but when it hits the news that they're going to be put out of business, a lot of people who went through similar situations with having their jobs ripped away are going to feel empathy, and they're going to say, I don't know if I want to vote for that. How can I vote for someone who's going to take someone's job away? Well, of course, the argument there being is that we would then replace the job. What we talked about doing, for example, right? But what I proposed earlier, you notice, giving you that opportunity to get didn't include removing any jobs right now. Because if you run on that, and the only reassurance you give people is that we're going to take care of you. You know how many times people have been told over the years by politicians, we're going to take care of you? I believe Georgia just elected 2 Democrat senators because they were going to get $2,000 checks. And how well did that turn out?
And we're still waiting on the 2,000. We only got 1,400.
Bingo. It's not happening. The same way that George H.W., Bill Clinton, and Al Gore, and all these other people who were pushing NAFTA back in the 90s swore up and down on their word it would be great for the country, and gutted the working class jobs in a lot of these states. It crushed them. They've heard these promises. We're going to take care of health care. We're going to end the war on drugs. Obama. We're going to get out of the wars. Politicians have been lying on a lot of the subjects that matter to the core of this country, especially around here, for too long. The people in this area of the world, and even I would say as far out to Kansas, to Texas, a lot of the smaller states, and even the bigger ones, they've been getting lied to for so long. They're not going to take the gamble just off your word, just because you're a new party. I don't think that's going to convince anyone to be willing to vote for a concept that take their job or their way of life right now away if they are just barely making ends meet on the promise that when I take it away, I'm going to give you what's going to have to happen is if we're ever going to reach that point, it's going to have to be we put the good things in place first, put the training facilities out there, give the public funding available so that you show them there's a path for you. Let them see it's open to everyone, that you don't have to work for $8, $9, $10 an hour or whatever the minimum wage in your state is anymore. You don't have, you could go, and there's plenty of public funding out there right now. You go to this school, we'll train you on how to weld. We'll train you on how to draw blueprints, train you on carpentry. We'll train you working on cars. We'll train you on all these different things. Okay. And you can go get a good job that will pay you good money, and it's not going to burden you to do it. They're going to have to see that first. And then when they see that that's actually being done, then and only then might they feel comfortable taking that. But when they don't see enough proof that there's going to be a payoff to that gamble, and the only thing they're getting is a politician's word for it, that's not going to convince anyone. Yeah, I don't mean that. I'm curious what you think on things like that. But, you know, the MPP is going to have to realize any serious third-party contender, whoever wants to do it, they're going to have to come to grips with that if they ever want enough of a coalition to win. What do you think?
Well, to your point on the trade centers and trade schools, especially for rural areas, they need to focus on rural areas. Especially here in Kansas, we have such a sparsely populated west side of Kansas that when people are done going to high school, they migrate here to Topeka or to Kansas City or to Wichita or, anywhere there's a bigger population center where there's a college. And so a lot of your small towns are dying in Kansas because of this. And, they say that they're dying because of failure to expand Medicaid. Well, if you're not providing people incentive to stay in the community and get a job in the community, ergo, cheaper VOTEC training, then they're going to leave because there's nothing there for them except to get up, go to a mediocre job, and come home, watch TV, and do the same thing over and over every day. Or, small towns are usually where your elderly people go to retire. And I grew up in a small town. I grew up in a little town of 250 people, about an hour north of here. And so I know what it's like living in a small town in an ag community as well as a city. And so I have my head's in both spaces. And the disabled people in rural America, they're totally getting forgotten about by both parties. When I was on the campaign trail last year, I ran for state senate last year. And a lot of the people in the 2 red counties that I went to didn't even know that there was an election happening. So, and I was the only person in my primary race. I carried 2 of the red counties in our Senate district. We have 3 counties in our Senate district, and Shawnee County, the county that I live in, is one of the bluer of the Senate district counties. So the fact that I carried 2 of the reddest counties as a Democrat, it says that I was the only Democrat that got out into the red counties early and hammered the 2 red counties. And so we need to do a better job of reaching rural voters and listening to them, period. You bring up the point of how the textile industry got decimated in your area. Well, the farmers here in Kansas, because of the trade wars last year, our soybean and wheat industry got decimated here in Kansas. We have farmers last year who were saying they had to let soybeans and wheat and corn and whatnot just sit in grain elevators because nobody was taking the crops,
Right. So, is there any final thoughts that you want to add on to this, or just kind of tell people what you think they need to do? You've been inside the MPP. What do you think we need to do going forward now that you've seen what's going on here?
I would say for anybody that is still considering volunteering or getting on the bandwagon with People's Party to please do so with caution. Use my experience and other people's experience that you have been seeing unfold over the last few weeks as your guidepost for your decision making. And, again, I said this earlier that if anybody would like any proof of what I've gone through with MPP, I would be more than happy to provide it to the Lone Wolf audience with whatever static website you have for your audience. And you are more than welcome to contact me on Twitter. My DMs are open. You can contact me on Facebook. My messenger is open. I'm on Discord. I'm in Franco's Discord, so you are more than welcome to talk to me over there. I'm an open book. I'm a straight shooter, just like I told Lone Wolf before he hit record. And so I hope I have proven to him in our hour together that I am a straight shooter. And, I'm not going to sit there and bullshit you or waste your time. So, because I don't want my time wasted. And, that's another thing that really irritates me is I don't feel like my time was respected in MPP.
Yeah.
I was raised that you respect your elders. And I was raised that you have respect for people. And, excuse me. So, actually it was beat into me. I had respect beat into me, literally. I grew up in an alcoholic, abusive household. So, I respect people. I respect their time. And I don't want their time wasted because I don't want mine wasted.
You brought up respecting your elders. And I had some dark days with my childhood as well. Parents split up and had issues in both households there. But for quite a few years, I lived with my grandpa, okay? And as you put it, the respect was beat into you. I understand wholeheartedly. You didn't pop off at grandma because she might break the paddle out, or you might get your jaws jacked as she.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a lot of people say you run to child abuse, child neglect, and to an extent, yeah, there are many people who just absolutely beat their kids, and that should not be allowed. But I learned respect. I learned respect, and that's carried over. I have a lot of respect for the previous generation. I have a lot of respect for the sacrifices that they've made over the years, and a lot of what they've gone through. A lot of that gutting of the happened when I was a kid, so I know what they went through, and I have a lot of respect for all that. So, I'm glad you came on. We need to get this message out there. And I want the third party, but I don't want people to be, sheep herded into another failure. We got enough people trying to sheep herd you to the Democrats. I don't want people sheep herded into this faux third party that people think is going to be one thing and turns out to be another failure. We don't have time to keep doing this trial and error. We need to get a real coalition together. We need to get a real movement going. And we're going to have to doing it quick if we want to take anything back at the ballot box. If you don't, it's revolution or nothing at that point. Okay.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you came on. I appreciate you wanting to come on and tell your story. We need to get the truth out there to people, and we will get this video and get your message out. So I hope everyone, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a good thumbs up. Drop your comments in the comment box below, and we will see you next time on the Lone Wolf Podcast.